Hi everyone, and welcome to English for You. I'm Pat.
And I'm Mike.
And we're going to be looking at a couple of different things we can do with sort of pancakey dishes over the next couple of days. It's almost like we're going to see a battle between two very popular pancake styles.
Oh my gosh.
Before we get into that though, what are some of your favorite sort of sweet treats, desserts, you know, sweet night market snacks, those things?
Well, I actually kind of like the things that we're going to be talking about. Those are some favorites, but I think I always have a sweet spot in my heart for pie. I love a good pie. Not such a cake fan. I'm a pie guy. I remember it was probably a big moment in my life. I must have been 12 or 13, right after my birthday party. My mom, of course, probably made a lovely cake, and I said, not wanting to insult her, because she was a good cook, but Mom, could I have a birthday pie next year?
Wow.
And she kind of looked at me like I was a weird person because it was a slightly odd request. But you know, after that, I got a nice lemon meringue pie for my birthday, which is great, except the only thing is putting candles.
That's not going to work, is it?
Yeah, and the top of a pie, they can fall over. Cakes are better for candles, but pies are better for me. So what about you?
I'll pretty much try anything, sweet stuff. I like kind of nuttier flavors to my desserts. I like a bit of that in them.
Like a pecan pie,
possibly. Yes, love those. Taiwanese stuff, though, you can't beat those little kind of ice cream wraps with the peanut powder and the cilantro and those sort of little ice cream burrito things.
Right, yeah. Well, that's actually maybe using one of the dishes we're going to be talking about today. You can make your own version, or make it authentic, and whatever you do, if you're cooking with tortillas, if you're using crepes in your cooking, you're going to have lots of great options.
That's right. Let's read through the article and introduce our first kind of special pancake.
Reading.
Crepe versus tortilla. The battle of the pancakes. If you have a sweet tooth, you're likely familiar with crepes. These French pancakes are usually served with sweet ingredients, such as peanut butter or Nutella. Jelly can also be used. People now think of crepes as a very French dish. However, they actually came from Brittany in the 12th or 13th century. Brittany is an area in northwest France, but was independent until 1532. It still has its own language, culture, and food. People say that the first crepe was created by accident. A woman dropped some porridge that was cooking over a fire on a hot cooking stone. The porridge instantly formed a delicious pancake, and the rest is history. Traditionally, crepes were made with buckwheat. They're still usually made like this in Brittany. However, in the rest of France, crepes are usually made with wheat flour. Crepes are usually eaten like other pancakes, with a range of sweet or savory fillings. The amaretto crepe cake is a different way to use crepes. It uses them to separate many layers of sweet filling.
So day one of our article starts, if you have a sweet tooth, meaning if you like sweet things, you're likely familiar with crepes. Okay, if you're familiar with something, you know what that thing is. It's not strange to you. It's not weird to you. It's not like you've never seen it before in your life. These are things you know. You've tried them. You've had them a bunch of times. There's no surprises here. Here's an example sentence. Are you familiar with this neighborhood? You know, do you know where stuff is? Have you been here before? You know how to get around it, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. You might not live there, but you've definitely experienced it sometime before. So are you familiar with crepes, or crepe to give them the proper French pronunciation? Because they are French. It says these French pancakes are usually served with sweet ingredients such as peanut butter or Nutella. Yeah, absolutely. They're generally something we have sweet. I think one that I know is very popular in the UK, just lemon and sugar. Sometimes people just put that on, so they don't have to be super sweet. They can be a little sour with some sweetness too. But whatever you put on your crepe or your crepe, you're definitely going to be looking at a type of pancake. And what is a pancake? A pancake is a cake you make in a pan. Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but basically it's a thin, flat piece of batter or that you cook in a pan or on a griddle on a basically large, hot, flat surface. So you're not cooking it in an oven. You're not cooking it like the traditional kind of cake. It's very thin, very flat. You can flip it over. And the wonderful thing about pancakes or crepe or these things, crepes, is that you can basically decorate them, or you can add on any other kind of ingredient you can possibly imagine. Most people do sweet stuff, but you can also do savory stuff. You can put ham and cheese on it or something like that. It's a little different, but basically, your imagination is the only limitation. For example, for this word pancake, most people think of pancakes as a breakfast food, but Melody likes to eat them for dinner sometimes. Yeah, pancakes are a very sort of traditional American style of breakfast food, especially.
Yeah, but you could definitely have them as a side with sort of eggs and stuff. It wouldn't be sweet.
Oh, yeah.
And on Pancake Day in the UK and Canada, yes?
No, we don't do that, but I know it's Mardi Gras,
yeah. Yeah, UK has a Pancake Day in February, and we just eat pancakes for dinner. It's fantastic. Yep. And you can use pancakes with many different ingredients. Of course, ingredients are foods that go into make other foods. The ingredients you need for a pancake are usually flour and maybe milk or buttermilk. Sometimes you might put eggs or some sugar or some other stuff, but it doesn't need to be much more complicated than that.
Absolutely not. It's so popular you can actually buy a pancake mix, and then often all you have to do is add water or milk or something, and you can make them very easily. And peanuts or peanut butter especially would be a very good thing to put with your pancakes or your crepes. What are peanuts? Well, this is actually not a kind of nut.
Whoa!
A lot of people think a peanut is a nut because it says nut in the name. But actually, it's a legume. It's more like a pea. You know those little green peas? It's more like that. Nuts actually grow on bushes or trees. Peanuts grow on the ground. So they're a little bit different, but the way we use them, the way we eat them, the way we think about them, we often put them with nuts, those kind of tasty snacks that we can eat. They can be good for you, but they can also be high in fat. But they are also wonderful to mix with other flavors. For example, some of the fans were eating peanuts as they watched the baseball game. Yeah, very popular snack to enjoy while you're watching sports or TV or something like that.
Yeah. So the article adds, as well as peanut butter and Nutella, which is a hazelnut chocolate, isn't it?
Chocolate spread, yeah.
Yeah. The article says jelly can also be used. And jelly is one of those words that, depending on which part of the world you're from, has a different meaning. Now, I think we're using the US meaning here, which is jelly is a sweet, sticky food made from boiled fruit juice and sugar, and you put it on bread. Strawberry jelly, raspberry jelly, blueberry jelly. Now in the UK, we'd more likely call this jam. And jelly would be the sort of wobbly stuff you eat as a dessert, like kind of IU jelly.
Okay.
But I guess you could put IU jelly in a pancake. Why not? In a crepe. In the US, the kind of jelly, they would say Jell-O, right? They use the brand.
Jell-O
often.
brand, yep.
Yeah, so in the US, peanut butter jelly. In the UK, we'd say peanut butter and jam. It's just one of those confusing words that has different names where you grew up. So here's a question for you. Which would you prefer on your toast, grape jelly or strawberry jam? One other difference that people make is that jelly doesn't have seeds and large lumps of fruit.
It's just the juice.
Just the juice, and jam has more like bits and pieces of stuff.
That's right. You boil down the fruit to get the jam, but you take just the juice to make your jelly, and that's why we generally find grape jelly the most common one. A lot of the other ones, strawberry, raspberry, is easier to make into a jam. Anyway, back to the article. It says, people now think of crepes as a very French dish. Yeah, sure, if you're following the history or the geography of where crepes came from, most people would take them right back to the country of France. It's a French dish.
So we said people think of crepes as a French dish. When we use this, we're using our language in focus to think of or to view something as something, to think of A as B. And this shows what people generally think about a subject. Could be a person, a food, a building, a movie, whatever. Often it communicates the general opinion about a thing. We could get specific and say, Pat thinks of football as an entertaining sport, or you can say people think of football as an entertaining sport. There are many other verbs we can use to show opinions in this way. Think of, regard, look on, look upon, that kind of thing. Here's an example. People think of Tokyo as a big, busy city, and they're right. So, are crepe French?
Well, yes, but not from the whole country, from one area of France that actually was sort of separate from France for a very long time. As we learn, it says, however, they actually came from Brittany in the 12th or 13th century. Today,
Spears?
Of course, not that Brittany.
Not that
no,
Brittany.
She's not that old. They're actually from France, but from this part of France called Brittany. That is where they come from. When we talk about where something comes from, that's basically kind of where a thing was born, where it was first created or invented. As I said, if we go back in history and follow the story of this thing, that is the place where it was first made, first found, first created. It could have spread all around the world as crepe have, but if we go back in time, back in history, that is where they first were made, in Brittany, in France.
Yeah, we see in the article, Brittany is an area in northwest France, but was independent until 1532. So 500 years ago, this was just its own little area of France. Like many parts of France were off on their own, and they only listened to the King of France when they felt like it. But eventually they all joined together and they formed France. But like a lot of these regions, it still kind of thinks of itself as a little bit by itself.
Right, absolutely. It's still, as we read, that's Brittany. It still has its own language, culture, and food. Most people there, of course, will speak French, but they also might speak Breton, I guess. And they have their own culture, their own food, their own traditional styles of dress, all that kind of stuff. But today, of course, they are French, the people from there.
Yeah. So what happened then back in the 12th or 13th century? The article says, people say, so this is the story, that the first crepe was created by accident.
Huh, very interesting. How does a person accidentally create a crepe? Well, we read, a woman dropped some porridge that was cooking over a fire on a hot cooking stone. So this is just an accident in the kitchen. This lady was cooking some porridge, probably in a large pot, and then maybe when she was moving it from the pot to a bowl to serve someone, some of it spilled onto a hot cooking stone, and the rest, as they say, is history. That's good, because I'd rather have a crepe than a bowl of porridge any day. And I say that because porridge is kind of a very simple food, and it can sort of be a little bit boring. Basically, to make a porridge, you take some kind of grain, some kind of grass that people grow, wheat, buckwheat, oats, barley, rice even, and then you cook it down in water till it's very, very soft, and then you serve it. Kind of like a very, very, very thick soup. Congee, of course, the shifan, I think that's called, is a very well-known porridge from this part of the world, made with rice, water, and then, of course, you would add things to it. Otherwise, it might be a little bit boring. And in the West, they use the grains that were common there, as I mentioned, wheat, oats, barley, things like that. And then in the West, if we're making porridge, and people do eat this for breakfast, especially maybe in the cold winter months, you might add some things to your porridge, such as milk and sugar, raisins, other things like that, to make the flavor a little bit better. So if you want something healthy, but a little bit boring, reach for a bowl of porridge.
So this woman took some of this, or accidentally spilled some of this porridge, and of course it's the same stuff you make pancakes with, because it's smashed up grains and a bit of liquid, and the porridge instantly formed a delicious pancake, and as Mike said, the rest is history. So
interesting.
yeah, it falls on the hot stone, cooks, spreads out, it becomes a big flat pancake. And when we say the rest is history, this idiom means everything successfully developed from there. Now, everybody knows the end result. We know crepes, we know they're very popular. It's become a part of history that people are familiar with. So we just say, the rest is history. I don't need to tell you the rest of the story. It's pretty obvious.
Traditionally, we read crepes were made with buckwheat. Okay, that's the grain that we're talking about here. Similar to wheat, but a little bit different. We don't use buckwheat too much in baking things like bread, but it is still used in some forms of cooking, and it's probably very healthy too. But when we think of buckwheat, we often think of wheat, and as I mentioned, oats, barley, other types of those grass that we grow and then use the grains to grind, make flour, make bread, and such not.
Yeah, buckwheat noodles are pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's one that you see often here and in Japan.
Brown noodles,
yes,
right?
That's
Darker
the ones.
brown, kind of healthy.
Okay, and the article says they're still usually made like this in Brittany. Yeah, it's still buckwheat crepes.
Okay, there you go. However, in the rest of France, crepes are usually made with wheat flour. This could be a question of just buckwheat grows really well in Brittany, but in other parts of France, maybe not so much. So they use what they have locally, in this case, wheat flour, which would be kind of the normal wheat that we would expect to find in our bread. So when they make those famous long French loaves of bread, they're using wheat. And if they're making crepes in other parts, they just reach for wheat, which is very easy to find. Wheat, as I mentioned, another grain, another grass that is grown on farms all around the world. And a lot of the bread that we eat, white bread, brown bread, that kind of stuff, is made with wheat. For example, a lot of wheat is grown on the prairies of the US and Canada. Giant fields of golden grain.
And when you've got all of these grains, you can't just bite into them. That doesn't really work. It hurts our teeth, it may hurt our stomachs. So a lot of times when we've got grains, we make them into flour. F-L-O-U-R, not F-L-O-W-E-R. Flour, of course, is finely ground grain. You've smashed it up into a white kind of powder or a brown powder, and it's used for making foods. You use flour to make cakes, to make bread, to make pancakes, to make all different kind of things, cookies and so on. Here's an example sentence. The baker's hands, face, and clothes were covered in flour.
All right, so how would you eat a crepe? Well, have you ever had a pancake? Kind of in the same way. As it says there, crepes are usually eaten like other pancakes with a range of sweet or savory fillings. Absolutely. The good thing about crepes is you can kind of put things inside them, you can wrap them up. One thing you probably might not eat with crepes too much is maple syrup, which is the traditional thing you would put on pancakes, especially in the North American way. But beyond that, you can put almost anything in there. Sweet, as we mentioned, things like jam, or savory fillings. I talked earlier about how you could put cheese or ham or something on your crepes. Those might actually be called galettes instead of crepes. Because they're savory, but really there is a range of possible ingredients, a range of possible ideas you can come up with when you're making your crepes. When we talk about a range of something, it's basically a variety of something, a wide choice of something. A lot of people like buffets. They offer a range of types of food, or a lot of people also enjoy their streaming services because when you put on your Netflix or whatever, there's a range of programs. You can watch comedy, you can watch drama, you can watch something serious. There's a lot of choice there.
So some of them can be sweet and others are savory. Savory means it's got a slightly saltier taste rather than a sweet taste. You know, think of a lot of biscuits have got more of a savory taste. Crackers and chips have got more of a savory taste than a sweet sugary one. But all of them we can call fillings.
Yes, a filling is a food that goes inside of something. Usually there'd be maybe a dough wrapped around the outside, but we're talking about things that you could put inside something instead of on top of something. That would be a topping, like on a pizza, but a filling would be inside the thing. But basically, we're getting a choice of foods here that we're adding to something and making it more interesting. The filling will be something you can choose as a cook or as the person ordering. Whatever you like, I'm sure there would be a filling out there for you.
And you may like this one. The article says the amaretto crepe cake is a different way to use crepes.
Oh, okay. What is it? It says it uses them to separate many layers of sweet filling. Oh, so you're kind of building a cake out of crepes instead of just making the cake as one thing, but that will give you these different layers. What is a layer? A layer is basically when we have one type of material with another type of material and then another type and then another type like that. We can think of clothing. On a cold day, you might wear layers of clothing, a thin shirt and then a sweater and then a jacket and then a coat if it's really, really cold, and those layers will keep you nice and warm. Or we can also talk about having layers on our bed. You might have a sheet with a blanket on top of it and then maybe something else on top of that. These are all independent, but we put them one on top of the other in order to serve a purpose of some kind.
Okay, so that's all about crepes. I hope you like the sound of all that. Tomorrow we're going to introduce a different way to use a very similar kind of food, but right now it's time for our For You Chat question.
You chat.
The question is, do you like to eat pancakes? I don't imagine there's going to be many no's, but if so, what do you like to have in them? Or we could say on them, with them, and so on.
Absolutely. I do like a pancake occasionally. I also like a waffle. I also like a crepe. But these are actually things I don't eat that often. Maybe I should make them more at home, but it's not the kind of thing I wake up and go, I want to have pancakes. But the last time I was in Canada, I visited the French part of Canada, Quebec City. I did have some crepes there, and they were wonderful.
What was in them? What was with them?
I think I had a galette, so I think we had it for lunch. So it was more like cheese and ham or something like that. Yeah, very, very nice, though.
Okay.
How about you? Do you like pancakes?
Oh, of course. What do I like? You can't go wrong with some fresh blueberries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, actual fresh. Or even like frozen ones that you've still got some of the syrupy stuff with them, mix them up. But yeah, I'll just try anything. I'll look in my fridge and go, what's kind of sweet? What do I think is going to work well here? And then just experiment a bit. Usually combine a few flavors. I mean, it works pancakes with ice cream.
Sure.
Hot pancakes, cold ice cream, perfect. Nothing wrong with that at all. So I'll just go with whatever is available. All right, that's all we have time for today, but join us tomorrow to learn about the crepe's distant cousin, the tortilla.
Vocabulary Review.
Familiar. I've been to Tainan many times, so the city feels familiar. Pancake. In the morning, Jill loves to make pancakes, which she rolls up with sugar and lemon. Peanut. One of my favorite dishes is Thai noodles with chicken and peanuts. Jelly. I like to put strawberry jelly on my toast, but my sister doesn't like it because it's too sweet. Wheat. We grow wheat on this farm and use it to make delicious bread and cakes. Flour. Susan's cake was terrible because she used the wrong kind of flour to make it.
智慧小补帖。
Ingredient. Porridge. Buckwheat. Savory. Filling. Layer.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net 自 u.net。